Meeting call to order. Today is Monday, March 23rd. Town Council meeting, a special Town Council meeting. Town Council Chambers, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island.
Councilman Licciardi,
He's absent.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Here.
Council Vice President D'Amico,
Here.
Council President Goslin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Also, Councilman D'Amico is via conference call. In the, outside the chambers, into the crowd is the town manager, Ernie Zimolinsky, the fire chief, Chief Ferrone, Solicitor Williamson, and Johnny Botello.
Discussion, ratification, and amendment of Executive Order 2020-1 of the Town Manager, a declaration of a state of emergency dated March 16th, 2020, resulting from the emergency created by the novel coronavirus known as COVID-19. Executive Order 2020-1 is attached.
Discussion. Mr. Manager, just state your name for the record.
Ernest Zimolinsky.
You gotta turn the light on. Is a button on that? Hey.
Ernest Zimolinsky. Thank you. The Governor's Office and the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns have been in constant contact with municipal leaders, mayors, managers, and been a great, since the outbreak of the COVID-19 coronavirus. One of the recommendations from the Governor's Office has been that each city and town declare a local state of emergency, declaration of emergency. The purpose would allow cities and towns to be able to act quickly to address issues that come up regarding the state of emergency and things that need to be done in order to move quickly and to be in the best interests of the public's health, safety, and welfare, to be able to make decisions on a very timely basis. Now, under Rhode Island General Laws 30-15-13, local disaster emergencies, the principal executive officer can declare a local emergency. And on March 16th, 2020, I issued an executive order declaring, which was a declaration of state of emergency. This was recommended by the Governor's Office, and a sample was provided to cities and towns to look at and use or modify as needed. So that was signed on last week, next Monday, March 16th. The statute also calls for the governing body to continue the declaration for an excess of 7 days. So within 7 days, the local legislative body has to review and authorize the continuation of the declaration of emergency. So what you have before you is item number 1, is the declaration of state of emergency, and the action would be to ratify the executive order, and which would be authorizing it, which the amendment to the executive order has the authorization of the council, and extending it every 7 days until April 30th, 2020. Why April 30th? The dates for various items have changed, almost daily or weekly or every other day. April 30th gives certainly the ability, hopefully, to deal with whatever issues come along in a quick and timely manner, as well as if the crisis is over before that, it can be discontinued by an action of the town manager or the town council. And that is pretty much it as far as the emergency declaration goes. Again, it's by state statute that this process, as well as at the recommendation of the Governor's Office, that cities and towns do this action so that actions can be implemented quickly. And again, what this executive order has done is implemented the Governor's reaffirmed the governor's requirements that have been set so far. She has, I think, issued 9 up-to-date executive orders. Some need to be codified by cities and towns, and others do not. So again, we are paralleling the governor's office staff's discussions and what cities and towns should do. And I guess that's about it. We have to answer any questions we have.
Councilman Messer, you had your hand up first?
Just to clarify, you have to do this every 7 days. You can't do it for a longer period of time?
No, it has to be renewed every 7 days, but the declaration can, well, 7 days, but the declaration can, the way it's written, extend out to the April 30th. So basically, it's every 7 days it'll be extended
Okay.
up until April 30th. And at that time, a decision would have to be made to extend or not. And again, if everything, if the situation is stabilized, then it would not be necessary. If it isn't, then another action of the council would be required to extend it past April 30th.
I think we'll all look forward to when it isn't anyway. But so we should plan then, like 7 days from now, we'll be doing the same thing?
Well, you don't have, no, you don't have to.
Oh, we don't have,
This-
all right, okay.
Yeah, this will take us to April
April
30th.
All right, you can
And
do, so
then-
you can do it you can do it on, you don't need the council to do it.
Correct, it's
Okay, all right,
automatic,
sorry.
will be automatically extended
Okay,
until April
You were
30th.
thinking March 30th, that's why,
Yeah.
which is next week.
okay,
Yeah.
yes.
And again, it seems like a long time since last week when this started. There's been many governor's executive orders. There was some, I think, yesterday, and
Today, too.
yes. So, well, we'll talk about number 2, some other things, but this is what the declaration of emergency is.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank
Mary
you.
Beth?
So, two things. One is the April 30th deadline, with the automatic extension every 7 days, it does seem to make sense, as long as everyone understands if things, because the state, that's more than the state has done at this point in time.
Yes, I believe it may be April 15th, but.
Exactly.
Yes.
But we do have the ability to rescind this if necessary.
Correct.
I would recommend that we amend number 6 on the executive order. It says gatherings of over 25 persons is prohibited. I believe that's 10 now.
It's 10 now, yes.
If I may make a suggestion,
Solicitor?
that if in fact modifications are to be required to the local state of emergency based upon the states, that should be able to be done automatically by the administrative officer. So for example, something like 25 people to 10 people, that should be an automatic amendment. You shouldn't have to seek ratification of the council.
So you mean as the state changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, if there's something that the state does that perhaps the majority of the council has questions about, certainly at that point in time, you can have a meeting and then have a vote to ratify.
Well, to answer your question, tomorrow I'll be issuing an executive order codifying some of the areas that the governor has done.
Okay.
One of them would have been the 10. So, and then some of the restrictions on some of the activities, such as the licenses for gun licenses. The governor has extended that
30 days.
to 30 days rather than 7. So some of the common areas that our departments would be impacted by, I'll just codify that, even though the governor has done that, which is the highest authority. We will parallel most of those that are relevant to something we're going to be doing, especially if it is in the enforcement aspect.
So it is ever-changing, and I agree, but I guess I'm not comfortable saying we should approve this knowing that it says
You
25 in there.
You can
So
amend that, I believe.
I would
And
recommend
if that's
it.
gonna be amended tonight, that's not gonna be a problem, because it was gonna be amended tomorrow.
Right, so no, that's fine.
Right.
That's perfectly fine.
Yes.
There's one other issue that you might want to bring to everyone's attention. When you codify the governor's executive orders, you may want to refer to them by whatever the executive number order is, or by putting an actual copy of the executive order attached to the local one.
Yes.
That way, if anybody questions anything, the state's position is right there backing us up.
So
I'm going to make a motion to amend number 6 on the Town of West Warwick executive order from 25 people down to 10 prohibited in gathering together.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So
May I make a suggestion? Only because
Solicitor?
that you take a roll call.
Okay. Councilwoman Williamson?
yes.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
And until this changes, make a roll call, vote so the record's clear.
So, could you clarify for me, are you saying that, so something, there'll be a paragraph added to this, saying that the governor's actions are, and the state
No,
actions are?
The codification, for example, this stays exactly the same as of tonight with 11 bullet points. When he codifies, brings in the governor's actions, he can list the governor's executive orders 2021
Right.
through
Okay.
11. And then actually, if you want, you can attach the actual executive order to the local order.
Okay.
Well, one of the executive orders today was if you're traveling domestic and coming back into Rhode Island, you must quarantine for 14.
No, that's only flight,
Actually,
on a flight, only on a flight.
that's what I'm saying, a flight.
Yeah.
Flying, I said flying back into
For
Rhode
the
Island.
record, just make sure, be recognized. so
Sorry.
I did say flying back into Rhode Island.
No, I,
I understand, you're fine, just that would.
Councilman Messier was just speaking. I apologize.
Behave over there.
Anything that happens like that, and again, I don't think there's gonna be an occurrence where in the future, the council, or a majority of the council is gonna deny or reject what the governor's doing. But at least that gives you the opportunity through your administrative officer to say, we're gonna mirror what the state's doing. If there does come a time when something doesn't sit right with the council can actually address it in the meeting.
And again, Ernie, when you do this, you're sending this out to all town employees with an email address and their department heads, so they get understanding of this. For instance, like today, if you're putting the travel ban, or not the travel ban, but flying back in from wherever into Rhode Island, you must quarantine. I think our employees need to be aware of that, because there are some who have scheduled vacations, who are taking
Right.
vacations or whatever it may be. They need to be aware that there is a quarantine.
I think the notice requirement from what is gonna happen out of the executive order from the town manager should be put on the Facebook page,
Website, no,
website, and
EMA.
EMA. 'Cause I don't think you're gonna be able to keep up with, by trying to put it in the Kent County Daily Times.
I'm not asking that, I'm just making sure our employees are aware of these changes also.
Right, that's a good idea. The directives so far have been to the department directors and police chief, fire chief, but certainly that can be done,
And-
so that we know, correct.
Who is enforcing these? For instance, if a bar has patrons in them or anything like that, who is enforcing that?
The Rhode Island State Police and local police departments.
Okay, just want to make clear. Any other questions for Ernie? Thank you, Ernie. Now we go on to 2.
Just a few
Let
updates.
her read it first.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Discussion concerning the town manager's action taken in response to COVID-19, including but not limited to restrictions placed on town hall as a result of the coronavirus.
Ernie?
Yes, we've, again, mirrored the governor's executive orders that seem to be relevant pertaining to, the town of West Warwick. One of the biggest changes has been on the following day, last Tuesday, the 17th, Town Hall was closed, restricted access to public. We did that at noon. It's, Town Hall is still open, it's still working, but the public access is restricted to appointment only. There are some instances where important work needs to be done that some people have, primarily in the clerk's office, say closings. You need to have title closings and recordings and things of that nature. One of the recommendations from this governor's office is that we should try to keep, the business going. When you listen to her press conferences, she wants to have business going as best we can, considering what's happening. So by appointment only, the town hall departments, someone can call, and if it's deemed something that is important that needs to get done, an appointment will be made, and an employee will meet the person coming in and take care of the business as quick as possible, and then the citizen or the person will be on their way. So so far, it's working well from what I understand. Most of the activity seems to be with the clerk's office, where they'll meet them, take the information. If it's recording, they'll wait, in that little entryway, and it'll be done, and they'll be done, and the proper information given back to them. So, so far, to my understanding, the restrictions, have been going well, and critical things that need to be done are also done. And again, there are many ways that, still we have a website, so there are many areas that can be accessed by the website. We're putting a list together of all those, because there are quite a few things, business that can be conducted through the website, through emails, and online services. Even taxes can be paid, because there is that lockbox, you have mail, you can go online, you can do a little mailbox on the way here in Town Hall, where you can drop it off in the parking lot. So, much business can be done during the regular day.
Hold on one second. Councilman, you might want to put mute.
Areas that can be accessed by the website.
Thank you.
I think Councilman, yes.
Jay?
So obviously, the fire department is still working, the police department is still working. You mentioned town hall. The civic center, I know, was announced that the civic center is currently closed. What about the Department of Public Works?
The Public
Fully
Works,
open now?
well, they're open. Recently, the bulk pickup has been suspended.
Yeah.
They are currently have the yard open, for people to drop off items. It is, public's asked to drop them off themselves, and wherever. So that function is still going on at the present time, but it's a constant evaluation of the services that are provided. And again, I'll back up a bit. There are numerous conference calls during the day for various items. There's one that is with the Department of Health, the Governor's Office, and the Rhode Island EMA. We have the League of Cities and Towns. So when many of these issues are discussed, and we have the thoughts of the Department of Health and Governor's Office and EMA. So when something comes up that may want to respond to as restricting your service or something of that nature, we have that sort of a process or vetting process to see what's happening in other cities and towns. One of the things that the governor wanted to do was try to be as uniformed as possible for cities and towns to have similar procedures in place. If there are restricted hours or restricted access, the governor would prefer that most communities try to follow something. Again, every community is different. Every community has local needs. But there is a request for some type of consistency within communities. I also mentioned, like the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and they are looking at many, many issues that affect all communities. One of the issues that they are going to be reviewing and giving guidance on would be if communities that have financial town meetings, all-day referendums, and things of that nature. The League of Cities and Towns is in contact with the Governor's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and virtually every Department of Administration, because there are so many issues that are similar to all communities. So, they'll put out their research, and then the communities can react to that. So, some of our decisions are influenced by, those conference calls and the various individuals that are on them, their agencies.
Mary Beth?
The last 2 days anyway, the governor has sort of stressed essential, non-essential workers, and that only essential workers should report, rest should work from home. There's also been the notion thrown out that if people don't comply, that she may actually shut things down. Are we ready to go? First of all, do we have what we deem non-essential workers that could work from home?
Well,
And is that capability available if indeed we do face a statewide shutdown?
well, there are some employees that can work from home, and then there are others that can't. What I've asked for with our staff actually today is a plan of what is essential, non-essential, and, you know, to get the idea and feeling of what services, you know, would be limited or maybe curtailed if that occurs. I've also asked for a look at scheduling or staffing levels that may, you know, if we had to put into a place where, you know, we would have a rotating schedule. So, you know, may not have a full staff, maybe have half and then work one day another. So
Right.
I've asked for the directors to do the review of essential and non-essential services at this time, and then what would be essential employees. Also, to look at if we had to do some unique scheduling to keep open.
And when would those decisions be made? So you've asked directors
Yeah,
to get to you
and
tomorrow?
right, and I would expect that to be received very soon.
Ernie,
Now, again, public safety is different. They don't,
Absolutely, I agree with
Ernie,
you.
I also recall you and I had a conversation. I think we've also stressed if anybody feels uncomfortable coming to work, if they have vacation or time,
right,
they're able to take that time if needed.
right.
Also, we've required, and I know Ernie and I had this conversation last week, that all department heads be here also if their staff is here, because, you know, we want to make sure the front line has the support they need. If they have any issues, they run into any issues here, they have somebody here that they can go to.
I just think that things, and we talked last week as well, things have changed a little bit in the message that's coming out of the governor's
Yeah.
office. And basically, you know, she's talking about professional services, really what is essential. We all like to think we're all essential, but
Right.
I know I'm really not. So
Right.
that's a,
Right, I think that, again, what we want to be prepared for is, you know, what may happen where the governor says, we're going to close, like Massachusetts, other states. And when that starts to happen, then we have to be ready. And I know, like in the League of Cities and Towns, they have the Massachusetts legislation, so we can sort of take a look at that to see how they determine what's essential or not. I would believe that essential services certainly would be the wastewater treatment plant. That has to run, wastewater treatment plant.
yes, absolutely.
If a department was closed down for a week or two, you know, would that be, you know, a real issue? And, you know, so we'll look at that and have our plan ready to go if that happens. If it happens tomorrow, then, you know, we might be a little bit behind.
I doubt it will happen tomorrow, but I think it is actually probably a pretty good idea to take a look at rotating schedules. You might have a function that needs to be performed. Again, if people have capability of doing it from home, that's something I think we should consider.
See,
But a
one-
rotating basis
right,
would
it's-
indeed be,
See, so in some cases, we don't have right now the, you know, technology to do that, but
Okay.
we can acquire it. Now, one thing I will mention that the, you know, the Rhode Island EMA is, you know, with our state of local emergency and the state of Rhode Island's local emergency, we are hopeful that we will receive FEMA reimbursement. So we are going to be keeping track. We have keeping track of any expenses related to this. So if in fact we need to buy more laptops so individuals can work at home that can, then, you know, hopefully that could be reimbursed. But this, again, this is like an evolving process that every day is something new, and something we did today could be not do it differently tomorrow with all the information that comes out. And again, I said it's probably, you know, too much, but, you know, the guidance is really coming from, you know, the state offices, the governor's office, and the best practices that the League of Cities and Towns is promoting, because they have access to what every city and town's doing, pretty much.
Just keep in mind also with FEMA reimbursement, just the last couple of council meetings ago, we just were reimbursed from 2010. So don't, you know, as a manager, I think you know better, but don't expect reimbursement within
No,
a
no.
year or so. Sometimes it takes up to 10 years.
It will take a while.
And that's what happened for us. It was with overtime and
Right.
whatever else, they reimbursed us, but it did take 10 years.
And we also can have our emergency purchasing in effect, where if something is needed, you know, the regular purchasing requirements don't have to go into play. If we need something, it's deemed essential, that director would go to the finance director, and if the finance director concurs, then that will just be purchased. All the records will be kept and all the documentation for reimbursement. But again, because of the state of emergency, if we need something, we can go and get it. And hopefully, what the items that we need, we can get. You know, some are backlogged in order, you know, that, you know, we'd be waiting for delivery, and some may be more easily attainable. So that's one streamlined process that we have. Mr. Solicitor, I know you've been,
Mr. Solicitor?
I would just caution the council and the manager regarding if employees are going to work at home, if we have the technology that can secure the information, because there's going to be issues of HIPAA, privacy concerns and confidential concerns that you may not want on, you know,
well, again,
a
it's,
mobile laptop. And the other thing is that whatever plan that's going to take effect, we also send that to the Interlocal Trust to let them comment on it to make sure there's no issues of liability that they have concerns with.
Because I'll be honest, I've received, I think, 4 to 6 calls this week alone just to talk, because I guess it's the end of the month, closings are happening and people are buying houses. And they're like, are we gonna be able to record our closing? I said, yeah. I said, you just gotta make an appointment through the clerk's office.
mail
I
it
gave
in.
them the
The
number.
closing,
Or
the
mail
closing
it.
aspect's easy enough. The receipt of money via mail or other means, the recording of that, is simple enough. But I'm talking more along the lines, if there's an issue pertaining to, say, a new birth certificate because of an adoption. The adoption might have gone through 6 weeks ago, everything's been finalized, ECYF is signed off. Now the parents are coming in for a new birth certificate, and you don't want somebody in the clerk's office doing that at home.
Oh, no.
Because you don't have, unless the technology,
They don't have the
well, I'm
technology.
just, you know,
Bill
again,
Vitals.
Right.
In town hall, I'm not sure what can work, who can work from home.
Yeah, it's-
The clerk's
And-
office
and
is.
He's gonna look at that,
Right.
yeah.
see what, and also, we're gonna look at the e-recording, we spoke about that. A few cities and towns have the e-recording where it can be all done online, request payment and access to records, so that's something that we'll look at as well, so, you know, if that can be done outside the town, that would be something that would be good to do, but again, that has to be looked at and see if that can be implemented, you know, in a quick fashion. If not, then it's a project that, you know, we would want to do. So if technology can help us provide our services quicker, if the technology is purchased to help in this crisis and at some point get reimbursed for it, that's fine. But again, at this point, we will do what we need to do to run the town, to keep the residents safe, to keep the employees safe. And, you know, that's what our objective is until this, you know, unprecedented, you know, at least in generations, this pandemic occurs. Fortunately, you know, we do have, you know, a fund balance that is you know, building up. So whatever we need to do, we will do. And so, excuse me.
I was just gonna suggest if, for example, the recording of deeds, because the transaction money that's gonna take place at the closing, if the town decides to do it by appointment every Wednesday, every Friday, that information can be sent out to the Rhode Island Bar Association, the title companies, and the Realtors Association. So if anything that's gonna be, if it comes to that, we can notify them that,
Yeah.
you know, you don't schedule closings 10 days in advance of a particular date, because, you know, you're not gonna record it. So that might, you know, alleviate the burden a little bit.
You know, and we're also looking into it, and maybe Chief Ferrone, who's our EMA director, may mention this more understanding and knowledge than I do on various systems for a council meeting. Again, you know, we're stressing that if there are boards and commissions that don't need to meet, put it off if they can, but we know there are going to be times where they have to meet. And so we're looking at a system that will allow public participation under these guidelines that we have, a 10 person or more, or less is for gatherings. So looking into a system where if we have public hearings for, ordinances or licenses, that there will be availability for a public to, I believe, phone in and be able to put on, speaker or something of that nature, so that they can comment on the public hearings, so that we can go forward with those items. So, and let's mention one other thing. We are preparing a fact sheet, for employees about the HR issues for the town, that they would be interested in, just as the council president said. What happens if this, what happens with that? And again, I think everyone wants to be as flexible as we can under the situation that we're dealing with, because, there are so many issues that are out there, especially when the employees are concerned. And we're going to try to address those as best we can. And once we do, we'll have these guidelines that will be sent to every employee. So we're working on that as well. And I don't, Chief, do you want to
I was just going to
elaborate
ask the
anything?
chief if you wanted
What-
to give us an
can I-
update.
can I
since
ask one
he's the
question
EMA.
first?
Go ahead.
Councilman Messier speaking. Now, Mary Beth brought up potential rotating schedules. Is the fire department or the police department, I know a lot of times it's alternating schedules, but in case somebody were to come down with it, you'd hate to see a whole department be quarantined for 2 weeks. So, since you're coming up, it's a perfect time to ask you, is there something that, I know that that Chief Knott's not here, but is that something the fire department's doing in case something like that happens, that the entire fire department wouldn't be quarantined?
So we try to limit, interactions on duty right now between them, so we won't lose a whole shift. The situation just recently presented itself, and we've averted it at this point right now. But it is something that could happen. So I'm not going to, So in that event, the other 3 shifts would have to pick up in that one shift.
So if something like that were to happen, we would have
Yes.
some,
Yeah, and then, we rely on mutual aid communities if we needed to. We'd have to see exactly what the situation was.
Because, I know
when
it seems crazy,
developed.
but it's very plausible at this point that it.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It was very close. I made a call to the Rhode Island Department of Health for guidance. We had a shift coming in the next day, and a member who had spiked a fever. And so that shift, what was coming in the next day, questionable whether or not they should come in. So, but the guidance was because there was only one symptom, he hadn't been tested at that time,
Gotcha.
and that, they could come into work. So, and we still have not gotten the results on that. So, but it's an excellent question. It's not an easy answer,
Yeah.
and it's something, we only 25% of the guys are working at any one time, a little bit less than that actually, because we have 6 other members that would be able to fill spots if we needed. So, I'll go into my little thing if you want. Is there another question about that aspect? Okay. So, the COVID-19, started making the news in around December. The fire department and EMA started making plans in late January. And in February, we began ordering resources to supplement what we already had. They were at that point already started to be backlogged. When the first case was confirmed in Rhode Island, we had started to draft a policy, so we had that policy ready to go. It was in the can, ready to go, and we had those additional resources coming in. So that very first week, we did initiate training. That training consisted of, what we knew at that time, and as you know, it changes, so we've had a couple other trainings along the way. But what COVID-19 was, the transmission, incubation periods, the virus's survival outside of the body, and what treatments we were going to use. In addition to that, we did refresher training, was provided to do the donning and doffing of the personal protective equipment. And, since then, we've also updated all of that training with the members. Up to date right now, we've had 14 calls for a person under investigation. So that's what we call someone who has the symptoms, hasn't been diagnosed or confirmed, but it sounds like it could be. So at each of those, at the first several of those, all of our members were dressing out in full PPE. We've since reduced the number of people that are dressing out to conserve equipment. Okay, so that's going on. And as the manager stated, on December 16th, he signed a declaration, and all town business to be conducted by appointment, and there was a restriction on all public departments. So also on that day, on the 16th, the West Warwick Fire Department received N95 masks from the state cache. The masks were distributed throughout the state according to how many runs all of the EMS services had provided over the past few years. So we got what was appropriate for us. The state has instituted an incident command system, and they have several branches. Each of those branches are having either daily, twice a week, or weekly updates with the people within that branch. So like the mayors, the governors meeting, having discussions with the mayors and town managers every day. Fire, EMS are talking twice a week. EMA directors are twice a week. So all these conference calls are going on throughout the year, and the trust is also having some. So in those conference calls, one of the early opportunities that we had to be proactive was to run a flu clinic. And I'm sure you've all heard that one of the best things, that you can do is to, get your flu shot. So we did run a flu shot in March 12th. We had about 29 people come and get vaccinated. And that was run with the West Warwick EMA, the West Warwick Senior Center, and it was sponsored by the Rhode Island Department of Health. So, it was one proactive step. I think having the plans in place and when we ordered, it was kind of step ahead of, there. So it was another proactive step that was taken. So the state had issued stopping orders for visitations at nursing homes. And this comes from Washington, where the first round of deaths in the country occurred in a nursing home facility. So they limited the amount of people going into, or any people going into visit in nursing homes. So I looked at, on the EMA, looked at our community, and we identified the elderly high-rises as a vulnerable population. As such, under the power through the declaration of state of emergency that was given to the emergency management director, they ordered a limit on visitors going into the elderly high-rises. So they were, and I have a copy, but just so you're aware, access to this facility is limited to essential caregivers. So professional caregivers that are going to be providing care to the residents, or family members that are taking care of a loved one. Additionally, there'll be no gathering of the residents in the building. All residents will maintain a social distance of 6 feet from one another, and that will be especially important near the entrances. I'm going to back up for a second. Well, let me just finish these. All deliveries will be done expediently. So if there's Meals on Wheels, FedEx, or whoever has to go in or out. In addition, any utility work is to be done expediently. They're not to stay around. These were developed with the managers from the facilities. We had a conference call, identified the managers, spoke to them all individually to see what steps they were taking. They were all on the ball. They were all doing disinfecting. They were all providing services. So we had a conference call, agreed on that these seemed to fit into what they thought were appropriate, and we initiated those. Okay. In addition, I asked them to come up with incident action plans in the event that something did happen in their facility. How they were going to get medication, how they were going to get nutrition, food for the people, and how they were going to have an accountability within their buildings. So those plans are in the works for those facilities. Okay, and moving forward, we had our first, town held its first teleconference meeting with the directors. So we had 12 different departments call in, and we were able to get the information out to all the departments in that manner. It went pretty well today.
Chief, that was using WebEx?
It was not, it was actually using a different software. So we are looking at WebEx. We did do some trial conferences with that. We've also done some with Zoom. So both of those are good platforms, I think show great promise for us to use in council meetings going forward. But what we used today it was strictly a conference calling
Conference call.
Yeah, call. So it wasn't and it was a much smaller group than what we'd be anticipating for a meeting. So it didn't have the controls that we would have, that you would need to run a town meeting.
Yeah, I know you and I had a discussion, I think it was last Friday.
Yeah.
With WebEx, you can raise your hand, so that person would log in. It would know it's John Botello. He'd raise his hand. We'd address John Botello via WebEx, so.
And you can mute and unmute individuals, so to allow people to talk when they raise their hands. All right, so one other thing that we had, we were contacted by the chief of the State Office of Housing and Community Development. They offered like a porta potty and a wash station for the homeless. So, we looked around, they had identified a couple areas, so we called around and we ended up locating it at the Project Hand Up, right on Factory Street. So we were able to get that there. And that's supposed to be serviced twice a week for the sound. Also, the Council on Healthy Aging, we tried to get an idea on how many people might need assistance with food, medication. So we ran some numbers and got those numbers back to that organization. So there's a lot, when I talked about the incident command system and the state, they're very well organized from what I see. And,
We're ranked
so-
number one right now.
What's that?
They're saying we're ranked number one in the proactiveness of this, so it's pretty
Yeah,
pretty
Not often you see Rhode Island ranked number one for something, so, on the
So-
positive side.
yeah. So, again, I think that we've been very proactive in trying to get ahead of this, where we are. Although we've had 14 runs, the Department of Health is supposed to call back the department if we have had a run with anybody who's tested positive. So at this point, we have not received a call that anybody that we've been in contact with,
So they don't
Has
call
been
you
fine.
both ways, they just call you if it's
they
positive?
just call you if it's positive.
So,
No news
So-
is good news.
No news
Counsel-
is good news.
Councilman Messier speaking. In the case where you did pick somebody up and they did test positive,
Yep.
would your guys have to quarantine, or because they have that
Right.
protective mask, they
No,
would
if
not
we-
have to?
Right, if we receive the call appropriately, we dress in the appropriate level of protection, they would not need to be isolated at that point, all right,
Okay.
because they did have it.
Okay.
They are, every time, they are just filling out the exposure report,
Mm-hmm.
but the guidance right now is that if you are properly dressed, you do not need to quarantine.
Do you know if the police department, I mean, I know that you're on the front lines, but in the police department, they could easily come in contact with some of the same individuals you are. Do you know if
Yeah.
are they able to use any of those precautions as well?
I know some are wearing nitrate gloves, or their specific gloves.
They do, and they do have some masks. We're trying to supplement what they have now, and.
I know there's a limited number of the masks.
There are. So REMA is actually having a shipment come in early in this week, if it hasn't already come in, and I believe that is earmarked for law enforcement.
I mean, they're trying to make as little contact with the public as possible unless need be. Obviously,
Yeah.
call, breaking the law, speeding, they're still maintaining that. They're definitely not as close to the public as they normally are.
And then we're also just looking to coordinate, REMA, Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency, through their funding, is trying to see what we've already spent and then project to the end of the month. So we have all the department heads trying to figure out what they've spent, what they will spend, and go forward with that. So in addition, we are ready to stand up an additional rescue if we need to. So that's all ready to go. Just, if our runs tick up or, we can institute that. So,
And as of today, I know yesterday we had 83.
It's up to
in Rhode
100,
Island. Now
106 now.
It's at 106 today, so it is,
Yeah.
it is increasing here in Rhode Island pretty quickly.
We get a lot of
Do you
that.
have anything that you, as the EMA director, would recommend? You want to let the public know, or?
Well, just maintain the social distancing, listen to what the governor is telling everyone, and, wash your hands if you can get a flu shot. It's going to be a little challenging now, but, just, watch out and monitor yourself and who you have contact with. So, if you're not feeling well, stay home. And, if you've been in contact with someone that you think might be, stay in contact. That incubation period of, 3 to 12 days is key. If you have contact with someone and they don't get sick in the next few days, then you're probably okay, because you're contagious 1 to 2 days before you develop symptoms. So if someone develops symptoms 7 days after you've had contact with them, you probably are in the clear, even though you had contact with them. Like that, not definite, but probably.
But there's a huge, Councilman Messier speaking,
Yep.
there's a huge
You didn't raise
percentage.
your hand, and
Sorry,
Councilwoman-
sorry.
That's okay.
Councilwoman Williamson talking. No, go ahead, you go
No,
first.
go ahead.
Sorry. But there's a lot of people that are quarantined in the state. I mean, Councilman D'Amico is one of 1,700 for the school, so you could easily lose a big chunk of people depending on, and yesterday at CVS, somebody, an employee at the CVS in Cranston, so I mean, you could lose a big chunk of people depending on where that person works and how many people they come in contact with.
Yes.
I was just wondering, you being our EMA person, has the state contacted West Warwick with any interest in, say, the Civic Center or any of those facilities to use, given its proximity to Kent Hospital? Have we
Yeah.
offered them to the state? Are we having any of those
Yeah,
conversations?
it is, the high school and Wakefield Hills Elementary is on the MedPods plan. So we already have a pre-plan to use them to distribute medications if necessary. So they could also be used, I don't believe they're looking at them for any surge for hospital type, like a field hospital or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Solicitor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, you spoke about speaking to the directors of the high-rises.
Yes.
Did the West Warwick Housing Authority get put on the list, so they've been notified?
Yes, they have been notified in the executive, the EMA order.
And how
Went
about
to
the
them.
Tenants Association, they've been on the list, they've been notified also?
I am not aware of a tenants
Board
association.
of Tenant Affairs, there's not enough, there's nobody there.
All right, I'm just making sure, because if nothing's trickling down for them, you
I
don't.
think there's one member remaining.
Okay. And third, has the library been closed?
Yes.
Thanks.
Any questions for the chief? Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Again, as the chief said, this has been a very challenging and difficult time for the town and people individually. It can be a stressful time. Do your best, stay home. I know we're homeschooling right now, and that's gonna be very challenging and very interesting for our children of West Warwick and our teachers of West Warwick, but it's for the safety and welfare of West Warwick. And also, if you don't have to go out, don't go out. Stay home. Try to avoid shopping if you can, or at least if you do go out, take care of it all in one trip, hopefully, and not multiple, 3-4 times a week. And keep that traffic down. I know some of the stores you do walk into, I happen to have to go into Home Depot on Saturday. It was very busy there. So let's try to keep West Warwick safe and try to stay home as much as we can.
Councilman Messier speaking. Just for clarification, not specifics of meetings, but are we gonna hold off all meetings going, other than emergency meetings for other business? Are we gonna be holding them off until this is settled, and the budget meetings as well? Is all that gonna be held off until this situation is somewhat?
So the budget meetings, we've had discussion of possibly doing a setting like this. with, once we get some stuff in place that the public can, our budget hearings themselves, the town council's budget workshops, that's strictly for the town council. Our 2 budget hearings, we'll have to have something in place if we're still all banned from attending over 10. So we'll have to have something in place for that. As far as our town council meeting, we are putting agenda forward. I will say this, that Ernie did give direction to the clerk's office today to put the agenda together and contact me and determine what is and isn't actionable. Some of the things on there, it may be very important to you, but, you know, I gotta look at time-wise and how long we're gonna spend here as a group. And,
Like you were gonna honor honor SAD, that can hold off until this is,
well, yes, we gotta recognize our hockey team for winning the championship
yeah.
here in Rhode Island. That's not gonna be
Essential,
happening.
of course.
SAD was supposed to be here to do a presentation, that's not gonna happen. But then on the agenda, and I'm gonna speak to Councilman Licciardi, he has like 4 or 5 items in there that are discussion action, and some of them could take a very long time of discussion action. For instance, I know Crompton Library, that's on there, recognizing Belize, the Easter egg hunt, and stuff like that. I gotta see what's important again, and if I don't, if I cut it, I don't want any council member being very upset, because we gotta make sure that we're conducting strictly business and getting out of here. But like I said, everybody has their own importances up
Yeah.
here that might not be as important, but we'll have that discussion between now and April 7th.
But if I may add, based upon the manager's emergency request, you can go through him, but you can also discuss amongst yourselves. It's not gonna be a floating forum, but the urgency, the emergency, and the essential. You can congratulate a team 6 months.
Of course, yeah.
Next year.
absolutely.
Easter's gonna be here next year.
Yeah, well, there's not gonna be an
Those
Easter egg
types-
hunt
those
anyway
types
this
of
year,
things that are
probably.
near and dear to your heart, you're gonna have to take a pass on. The other issues, and I think a lot of people might be under a couple of misconceptions. We're a home rule charter town, which means as long as we've got a budget from last year, even if you don't get a budget for this year, that budget's there to protect you going forward. So in the event that there's a catastrophic 90-day delay, all right, as long as the state is notified through the Auditor General, Division of Revenue, Treasurer, of what's going on, and they're gonna respect this.
And I'm sure that'll happen everywhere, it won't just be this town, of course,
So
yeah.
that delay issue really is gonna start, you know, you're gonna start off probably looking at 10 days, then 15, then
Yeah.
30, then it's gonna start getting shorter and shorter, because when you have to start making contributions to the pension plan, you gotta make payments, all right?
Yeah,
If there's no money coming in, you have a hard time having money go out.
yeah,
The manager's gonna be on that on a daily basis, but as far as the budget's concerned, there's been times in the past where the financial town meeting's been kicked off a couple of weeks.
yeah.
The all-day referendum's been kicked out a couple of weeks, so don't worry.
Yeah, and I mean, and in the past, when there's a budget that's failed, you had to have it again anyway,
And
so.
as far as the council having meetings, you can certainly put a time limit. Say that whatever's gonna be met, if the council's gonna meet once a month, twice a month, however you're gonna do it, you can just say, listen, we're gonna meet for 45 minutes, that's it.
And to clarify for the people that are, there's probably people that are watching at home, John Botello did set up maybe, Dave, if you want to explain it to the people that maybe don't understand what this phone is,
Well,
what John is.
this here is just for Councilman D'Amico, who's
Yeah.
on the line. They're still processing and seeing what program we're gonna use to allow public to attend the meetings through either WebEx or Skype, whatever it may be. It's just a matter of they wanna see what's best and a little easy to control. I know I was on a conference call with Congressman Langevin the other day where it had thousands of people on that call, and they had to hit *3 to actually ask questions or speak, which was run by his aide, and they said, go ahead, Mr. Goslin, you're next, and it conducted itself very well. Now, if we have something like that, we would definitely probably have to have somebody up here or out in the crowd with that computer set up where they're able to get the mic or at least relay the question over from whoever and be able to do that. And again, these are uncharted waters for municipalities and definitely meetings here in the community and in the state. And I think what the solicitor said, I think the state is understanding what everybody's going through, and we'll be a little lenient on the OMAs as long as we follow their rules as to what they're allowing us to do.
I've handed you all
Yeah.
the cheat sheet as to what the Attorney General has posted on his website regarding the changes, temporary changes in both the OMA and the APRA, so.
And Marion, if you can scan
familiarize
this,
yourself with that.
if you can scan this in and send it to the other council members, Jason Licciardi and John D'Amico, so they have it via email,
Mhm.
that'd be great. Any other concerns?
So as of,
John, do you have anything?
No, I just want to, thank everyone for the hard work that they're doing. I know that the manager is spending a lot of extra time working on, a multitude of different facets and things that are happening in the town at this point. And of course, the fire chief has put in so much extra time, and, I want to let him know that that is appreciated.
Thank you, John, and also you too. I know you've been working hard with writing some letters and keeping the public informed, so thank you.
Appreciate it.
so as of now, the next meeting, provided something doesn't change, is April 7th, is the
April
tentative next date, provided,
Yes, and the only recommendation I would have is all wastewater treatment meetings should be canceled at this point unless there's something pressing. We don't need to hear about,
We won't have the subcommittee. either, I
So
don't
that
believe.
way there, I understand hearing their budget and their cash flow and all that's important, but not during these times.
Could I just
So
ask
let's-
the chief a question? Kent County Water Authority, I'm assuming you're speaking to them on a daily basis. These people are gonna have concerns that someone's gonna ultimately have to answer their questions about water.
Well, I know Kent County Water Authority has been scheduled their meter changes, and they have been canceling those meter changes. But we should at least keep track of what's going on with them. I don't think we'll have any water
I was
issues.
just thinking, I don't think we will either, but people are panicking, and
Yeah.
when they panic, normally they're gonna start trying to.
All public utilities, I think, right now have said that they're not going into any type of shut-offs, even for non-payment. I know even my company sent out a mass email to every customer saying, we're increasing your speeds, and we're, if you're missing a payment, we're not shutting you off at this time.
I just know that if phone calls are made down there, and they don't get answered, they're gonna be calling here.
And that's the other thing, Ernie, I know all departments are staffed right now. We just wanna make sure that since we have a list at the front door, that everybody is answering their phones. Whether it's the department head answering the phone for them, or if it's a employee, a frontline employee. Because I did get reports that there was one office that doesn't seem to be answering at all. So I just wanna make sure that we are answering the phones, and the clerks are doing a very good job. And DP, everybody's doing a good job, but, just make sure, I know it's stressful here in town hall, like, we've had some conversations with employees, we were here rather long Friday with some of the employees, and we understand their concerns, and anything that HR and Ernie and any department head needs to address, please do, make sure we're taking care of our employees during this matter. It is getting stressful at home and probably here also.
And it might get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, it's,
Yes.
according to the governor, it's gonna be a very critical week. All right, with that being said,
all right, stay safe, everybody, motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, John, you have a good night, be safe.
Same to
Bye,
you.
John.
Thank you, bud.